Welcome to PAB 2010.
Relevance, I think, can be misconstrued. Because are you going to win everybody over to your podcast or your blog? No. You should have a unique, distinct product. And you can't be all things to everyone, nor should you try. That's a recipe for failure. Okay? But we need to think about how things can be relevant or kind of key people into what we're writing or talking or speaking about so that they are interested and they listen. And I'll give a good example of that in just a moment. Now, about a week ago, I was talking to another podcaster who asked me, "What's your talk about?" And I said, what you just heard, it's make the irrelevant relevant, apply 3 learning principles to your media. And this person said to me, "Well, that's bullshit." And I said, "What?" And he said, "Are you telling me that if I have a podcast about Matchbox cars and I apply what you say, then all of a sudden I'm going to make somebody who doesn't care about Matchbox cars listen to my podcast?" And I said, no, that's not it. I'm not here to turn you into a magician to make everyone who doesn't care about your product listen to it. But we can take some of these principles and we can understand how to make things relevant so that it opens up a wider audience for us, or maybe lets our audience see, okay, here's what's in it for you. Here's why you should listen. Here's a good example of when some relevance would have helped. What you see here on the screens, this is what would have been the cover for a book. You probably can't see the title. It's a little small, but I'll read it to you. This is a book that was written about 9, 10, maybe even 11 years ago called The Accidental Terrorist. What goes off in your mind when you hear that?
It was a mistake.
It was a mistake? Yeah. What other thoughts or images come up in your mind? 9/11, yes. Bingo, okay? The title, pop over here, is The Accidental Terrorist, and in the title bar is images of an airplane. An image of airplanes. That's what I meant to say. Okay? So you're seeing terrorists, you're seeing airplanes. What are you thinking? 9/11. Are you going to hurry up and read this book?
Well, plus it looks like he's on vacation.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, it also looks like he's on vacation because there's a waterfall behind him. Okay, good. So we're thinking 9/11, terrorism, vacation, airplanes. I'm not really into reading this book. This was a book that was written about 10 or 11 years ago and was slated to be published at the end of 2001. And the publisher yanked it. Okay? They said, no, we are not putting this out. And, I can see why. Probably a good business decision. So Bill Shun, the author, about, year and a half, 2 years ago, turned this into a podcast. And it's on iTunes. And I know Bill because we're from the same writing sphere in Chicago, but I didn't, meet him and become friends with him. But he would put things on our Google groups like, listen to my podcast, The Accidental Terrorist. Come to my reading. I'm going to read from The Accidental Terrorist tonight. And what do you think was my reaction?
Don't think so.
Yeah, I don't think so. I want to hear about this. And here's where Bill could have really used to think about some relevance. This book doesn't really have anything to do with being a terrorist. It is a memoir of Bill's years as a reluctant Mormon missionary in Canada in the mid-1980s. I have since listened to his podcast. I love it. I tell everyone about it. It is funny. It is heartfelt. It is heartbreaking. It is, wow, amazing. And he's a good reader, too. I mean, I was blown away once I started listening to it. And I'm thinking to myself, Bill, A, why didn't you change the title? B, why don't you have a different graphic to go with your podcast? Something that maybe tells us something more about what it's really about. He had a fiance he left behind. He had friends who were jerking him around. Oh, my God, who doesn't want to hear that stuff? Okay, and let's go ahead and take a look at the third thing that adults need before they buy into something or want to learn, and that is the benefits. Benefits sounds real, stiff, sterile, corporate, but here's what we call it in the training world. This is the WIFM, and everybody in the world has WIFM. WIFM stands for What's in it for me, because that's what we're always thinking. What am I going to get out of this? Okay? And then something else to think about, and you'll hear me touch on this again later. What am I going to get out of this? But also, as the media creator, you got to know, what do you want your audience to know, do, or feel? If you can't pin that down, you're just going to be rambling. Raise your hand if you've ever gone to a speech or a presentation or a meeting where the speaker was just rambling, blather, 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 and you're wondering, what am I doing here? And then when it was over, you went, well, there's an hour of my life I'm never going to get back. Only 2 of you? Okay, almost 100% of you. Right. It happens to all of us, okay? And the reason why that happens, why we get sucked into meetings or presentations where it's blather, 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 is that the speaker didn't prepare. So you better know, what do you want your audience to know, do, or feel, but also, what are they going to get out of it? And tell them. Even if it's just something simple like you're going to hear a good story. You might get a tip out of this, okay? Whatever it is. More examples of podcasts that do this and do this well. Writing excuses. This is a podcast for writers. And it's called Writing Excuses because those of us who write all make excuses not to write. But one thing I love is that with each of their podcasts, this is actually an old one, they're up to, I think, 427 now, they tell you right away what it is, but then their tagline is 15 minutes long because you're in a hurry and we're not that smart. And I love this because, okay, good. I don't have a lot of time. I can sit here for 15 minutes and listen to this. Those of you who've read my blog or followed my tweets, Scarborough Dude, know that I bitch about hour-long podcasts all the time. Scarborough Dude is the 1 hour-long podcast that I do make an effort to listen to every week. Okay? But I know that I'm going to get some writing tips, and I'm going to be out of here in 15 minutes. Good. Okay? And then I made up this term this week, TWIFM, the what's in it for me on Twitter, because Eric Dye tweeted something this week that I used that was so much better than how I normally tweet my podcasts. Okay, someone did a better job of it. Eric Dye, I know it's really small and hard to see there, but Eric posted a podcast this week for business owners, and his little lead into the URL was, have you protected your brilliant ideas? And it's the ePodcast Network, Entrepreneur Podcast Network. And when I saw that, I went, ooh, I need to know that for my business. And I clicked through. I've learned from Eric, because what I did before this day is I would put a URL to my podcast in Twitter, and I would just put podcast. So not applying my own principles. Do what I say, not as I do. Okay? So I thought that was really cool that he put out, what you're going to get out of it right away in the tweet. And sure enough, I clicked through. Okay, just some other good tips and ideas in general. Limit the length, because especially today, people don't have a lot of time. People are busy. I'm not saying you have to have a 5-minute podcast, but know that if you're blathering on about how great you are, how wonderful your sandwich is, or boy, your 2-year-old says no to everything for an hour, nobody's going to listen. Quite a few of you do this and do it well. State your running time. Put it on your blog or put it on the podcast, or make sure the file opens and shows how long we have. I find it really frustrating when I want to listen to a podcast, but maybe I have to leave in a half an hour, and I don't know how long it is. I like to know that up top. And again, like I said before, use the KDF principle. Ask yourself, what do I want my listeners, my audience, my readers to know, do, or feel? And this is where I see a lot of podcasts and a lot of media falling flat, because maybe someone's talking about something, but there's no soul underneath it, or I don't know what I'm supposed to be getting out of this. Last thing I want to say to you all, thank you for your time, because I know how valuable it is. Thanks.
Thanks, Mare.
Thank you, Bob. Thanks, Bob and Mark.